Welcome to the new video, Old Cryptocoin, in the fascinating world of American coin collecting. Few themes capture history, leadership, and artistry quite like presidential coins. And today we explore three remarkable figures whose legacies were immortalized in U.S. currency. Zachary Taylor, John Adams, and James Madison. Three presidents whose leadership helped shape the United States during critical periods, and whose images on coins tell stories far beyond their metallic surfaces. Let's begin with Zachary Taylor, the 12th President of the United States, a military hero known for his role in the Mexican-American War, whose coin is part of the presidential $1 coin program launched in 2007 to honor each deceased president in the order they served. The Zachary Taylor dollar coin, released in 2009, features a detailed portrait that reflects his rugged personality and straightforward leadership style. And as collectors examine this coin, they often notice the inscriptions along the edge, including the year of minting, mint mark, and the mottos E Pluribus Unum and In God We Trust, though earlier versions of the series placed In God We Trust on the edge rather than the face, which sparked public debate and added a layer of controversy and collectability to certain issues, making some Taylor coins more desirable depending on minting errors or variations. And while millions were produced, pristine uncirculated examples, or coins with unique edge lettering, mistakes can command higher values among collectors, turning what appears to be a simple $1 coin into a hidden treasure of American history. Moving on to John Adams, the second President of the United States and a key founding father. His coin was one of the earliest released in the presidential $1 series in 2007, and it holds a special place in numismatic history due to a famous minting error known as the Godless Dollar, where some coins were mistakenly struck without the edge inscriptions, including In God We Trust, making these error coins highly sought after and valuable in the collector market. And the portrait of John Adams on the coin reflects his intellectual strength and commitment to independence, reminding us of his critical role in securing freedom from Britain and establishing the foundations of American governance. And beyond its monetary value, the Adams coin represents a piece of early American political philosophy, capturing the spirit of a man who believed deeply in law, order, and the responsibilities of leadership. And as collectors hold this coin, they are not just holding currency, but a symbol of the birth of a nation and the enduring principles that continue to guide it. Finally, we turn to James Madison, the fourth President of the United States, often called the father of the Constitution, whose coin was released in 2007 as well, and stands as a tribute to his immense contributions to American democracy, including his role in drafting the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And Madison dollar coin features a dignified portrait that reflects his intellectual legacy and dedication to building a strong yet balanced federal government. And like the Adams coin, Madison's coin also experienced edge lettering variations, making certain pieces more collectible, especially those with missing or misaligned inscriptions. And collectors often seek coins from specific mints, such as Philadelphia or Denver, as well as proof versions from the San Francisco Mint, which feature a mirror-like finish and are typically sold in special sets, increasing their appeal among serious numismatists. And beyond its collectible value, the Madison coin serves as a reminder of the foundational principles of liberty and governance that define the United States, making it not just a coin, but a historical artifact that connects the past to the present. As we look at these three coins together, Zachary Taylor, John Adams, and James Madison, we begin to see a broader narrative emerge, one that tells the story of America through its leaders and the currency that honors them, each coin representing a different era, a different challenge, and a different vision for the nation, yet all united by the common goal of building and preserving a free and prosperous country. And for collectors, these coins offer more than just financial value. They provide a tangible connection to history, a chance to hold the legacy of great leaders in the palm of your hand. And whether you are a seasoned numismatist or a beginner just starting your collection, these presidential coins offer an accessible and meaningful way to explore American history. And as the market continues to evolve, with certain rare errors and high-grade coins increasing in value, the potential for discovery and investment remains strong, making these coins not only historically significant but also potentially profitable. In conclusion, the coins of Zachary Taylor, John Adams, and James Madison are more than just pieces of metal. They are storytellers, carry with them the legacy of leadership, the struggles of a young nation, and enduring ideals that continue to shape the United States today. And as you continue your journey into coin collecting, remember that every coin has a story, and sometimes the most ordinary-looking coin can hold extraordinary value, both in history and in the collector's market. Step 1 into the year 1849. The United States of America stood at a crossroads, expanding rapidly across the continent, while struggling to define what kind of nation it would become, and into this moment stepped a man unlike any president before him, Zachary Taylor, a career soldier with no prior political experience, known as Old Rough and Ready, whose reputation had been forged on the battlefields of the Mexican-American War rather than in the halls of government. And yet the American people saw in him a symbol of strength, honesty, and national unity, electing him as the 12th President of the United States, a surprising victory for a man who had never even voted in a presidential election before his own. And as Taylor took office on March 4th, 1849, he inherited a nation deeply divided over one central issue that threatened to tear it apart: slavery, especially in the newly acquired territories gained after the war with Mexico, territories that raised urgent questions about whether they would enter the Union as free states or slave states. And though Taylor himself was a slaveholder from Louisiana, his views would prove unexpectedly independent, even controversial among his Southern supporters, as he believed strongly in preserving the Union above all else. And rather than allowing Congress to prolong bitter debates over slavery in the territories, Taylor proposed a bold and direct solution, urging California and New Mexico to draft state constitutions and apply for admission to the Union immediately, bypassing the territorial stage altogether, a move that would effectively limit the expansion of slavery without directly confronting it in legislation. And this stance placed him at odds with many powerful Southern leaders who expected him to support their interests, but Taylor, guided by a sense of duty to the nation rather than political alliances, refused to yield, demonstrating a firmness that surprised both his allies and his opponents. And as tensions escalated in Congress, figures like Henry Clay and John C. Calhoun worked tirelessly to craft compromises that might hold the Union together, while Taylor remained skeptical of sweeping legislative deals, believing instead in straightforward solutions and the authority of the presidency to guide the nation through crisis. And during his short time in office, Taylor also faced challenges beyond the issue of slavery, including disputes over the boundaries of Texas, which claimed large portions of New Mexico territory, creating the risk of armed conflict between state and federal forces, a situation that Taylor handled with characteristic decisiveness, warning that he would personally lead troops if necessary to enforce federal authority, showing once again that he was a soldier at heart, unafraid of confrontation when the unity of the nation was at stake. And despite his limited experience in politics, Taylor's presidency was marked by a surprising independence, as he resisted pressure from both Northern abolitionists and Southern pro-slavery advocates, seeking instead a path that would preserve the Union without inflaming divisions further. And yet his presidency, though filled with potential, would ultimately be tragically short-lived, as on July 4th, 1850, after attending Independence Day celebrations in Washington, D.C., Taylor fell ill, reportedly after consuming large quantities of cold milk and cherries, and within days, his condition worsened rapidly, leading to his death on July 9th, 1850, just 16 months after taking office, cutting short a presidency that might have shaped the nation's future in profound ways, and leaving behind a legacy that continues to intrigue historians, as his unexpected positions on key issues suggest that he might have steered the country along a different path during one of its most turbulent periods. And with his death, the presidency passed to Millard Fillmore, who took a very different approach, supporting the Compromise of 1850, a series of measures that attempted to ease tensions between free and slave states, but ultimately only delayed the inevitable conflict that would erupt a decade later in the Civil War. And as we reflect on the life and presidency of Zachary Taylor, we see a man shaped by duty, discipline, and a deep commitment to the Union, a leader who entered politics reluctantly, yet governed with a strong sense of purpose, whose brief time in office reminds us how fragile the course of history can be, and how different the story of the United States might have been had he lived longer. And today, Taylor is remembered not only as a war hero, but as a president who stood firm in the face of division, striving to hold a nation together at a moment when its future was anything but certain, a testament to the enduring challenge of leadership in times of crisis, and the lasting impact of decisions made in even the shortest of presidencies. Step 2, the story of John Adams, the second president of the United States, is one of fierce intellect, unwavering patriotism, and deep internal conflict during one of the most fragile periods in American history, as he assumed office in 1797, following the leadership of George Washington. Adams stepped into a role that was still undefined, uncertain, and burdened with immense expectations. The young nation was barely a decade old under its Constitution, and the world around it was engulfed in turmoil, especially due to the ongoing conflict between Britain and revolutionary France. Adams, a Federalist, believed in a strong central government and had already made his mark as a key figure in the American Revolution, having helped draft the Declaration of Independence alongside Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. But his presidency would test his principles in ways he could never have anticipated. One of the first major challenges Adams faced was a deteriorating relationship with France. Tensions escalated into what became known as the Quasi-War, an undeclared naval war fought primarily at sea, sparked by the infamous XYZ affair, in which American diplomats were asked for bribes by French agents. The scandal outraged the American public and pushed the nation toward conflict. Adams, however, showed remarkable restraint, despite pressure from his own party to declare full-scale war. He chose diplomacy over destruction, strengthening the Navy while secretly pursuing peace. Negotiations. This decision would ultimately prevent a devastating war, but cost him politically, as many Federalists turned against him, seeing his actions as weak. Meanwhile, domestically, Adams faced growing division between the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans led by Thomas Jefferson. The political climate became increasingly hostile, and fear of foreign influence led to the passage of the controversial Alien and Sedition Acts. These laws aimed to limit the power of immigrants and silence criticism of the government, but they sparked outrage across the nation. Critics argue that they violated the First Amendment and were used to suppress opposition voices, particularly those aligned with Jefferson. Adams' support for these acts remains one of the most debated aspects of his presidency, as it appeared to contradict the very freedoms the nation had fought to secure. Yet Adams believed he was protecting the country from internal threats during a time of near war. His presidency reveals a difficult balance between liberty and security, a theme that continues to resonate in modern politics. Despite the controversies, Adams achieved a significant diplomatic victory with the Convention of 1800, which ended the Quasi-War and restored peace with France. This agreement demonstrated his commitment to avoiding unnecessary conflict and preserving the stability of the young republic. However, the political damage had already been done. The election of 1800 became one of the most bitter and contentious in American history. Adams faced off against his former ally-turned-rival, Thomas Jefferson, in a campaign marked by personal attacks and deep ideological divides. Ultimately, Adams lost the presidency to Jefferson, marking the first peaceful transfer of power between political parties in the United States, a defining moment for American democracy. But Adams' story does not end with his defeat. In his final days in office, he made a series of judicial appointments known as the Midnight Appointments, including the famous case involving John Marshall, whose leadership would shape the future of the Supreme Court. Adams retired his farm in Massachusetts, where he spent years reflecting on his life and exchanging letters with Thomas Jefferson. Their correspondence later became one of the most remarkable intellectual dialogues in American history, offering insights into the minds of two founding fathers who once stood on opposite sides of the political spectrum. John Adams lived long enough to witness the continued growth of the nation he helped create, and in a poetic twist of fate, he died on July 4th, 1826, the same day as Thomas Jefferson, exactly 50 years after the Declaration of Independence was adopted. His legacy is complex, marked by both principled leadership and controversial decisions. He was a man of deep conviction, who prioritized the survival of the nation above personal popularity, often at great cost to his career. John Adams may not always be remembered as the most beloved president, but he remains one of the most important, a leader who navigated the United States through a critical and dangerous era, preserving its independence and setting precedents that would define the presidency for generations to come. His story is a powerful reminder that true leadership often requires difficult choices, courage in the face of criticism, and a commitment to the greater good, even when it comes at a personal price. And as we look back on the early years of the United States, The presidency of John Adams stands as a testament to the resilience and determination that helped shape a nation destined to endure. Lost James Madison, the fourth president of the United States, entered office in 1809 during a time of growing tension and uncertainty, both at home and abroad, and though often remembered as the father of the Constitution, his presidency would test his leadership in ways few could have predicted, shaping the young nation through conflict, resilience, and transformation. Born in 1751 in Virginia, Madison had already played a crucial role in drafting the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. But as president, he faced a different challenge altogether, leading a fragile republic through international conflict, particularly with Great Britain, whose interference with American trade and impressment of American sailors pushed the nation toward war. And despite Madison's cautious and intellectual personality, he found himself at the center of one of the most defining conflicts in early American history, the War of 1812, which began in June 1812 after years of diplomatic tensions failed to resolve key issues. And although the United States was not fully prepared for war, Madison believed it was necessary to defend national honor and sovereignty. Yet the early stages of the war proved disastrous, with failed invasions of Canada and a lack of coordination within the military exposing the weaknesses of the young nation. And matters worsened dramatically in 1814 when British forces marched into Washington, D.C., setting fire to key government buildings, including the White House and the Capitol, in what became known as the Burning of Washington, forcing Madison and his administration to flee the city, an event that shocked the nation and tested the morale of its citizens. But despite these setbacks, the American spirit remained unbroken, and victories such as the defense of Baltimore, which inspired the writing of the Star-Spangled Banner, and General Andrew Jackson's triumph at the Battle of New Orleans boosted national pride, even though that battle occurred after. The peace treaty had already been signed. The Treaty of Ghent officially ended the war in December 1814, restoring pre-war boundaries and bringing a sense of closure to a conflict that, while inconclusive in territorial terms, strengthened American identity and independence. And Madison emerged from the war with renewed respect, having guided the nation through one of its earliest and most difficult trials. But his presidency was not defined by war alone, as domestically Madison supported measures to strengthen the nation's infrastructure and economy, recognizing the need for better roads, canals, and financial systems. Although he initially opposed the creation of a national bank, he later signed the charter for the Second Bank of the United States, acknowledging the importance of financial stability. And his administration also saw the rise of American manufacturing, as the war had disrupted imports and encouraged domestic production, laying the groundwork for economic growth. And politically, Madison's presidency marked the decline of the Federalist Party, particularly after the controversial Hartford Convention, where Federalists voiced opposition to the war, leading many Americans to view them as unpatriotic. And as a result, the Democratic-Republican Party, to which Madison belonged, gained dominance, ushering in what would later be called the era of good feelings, although Madison himself did not live to see its full development. And throughout his presidency, Madison remained a thoughtful and deliberate leader, often relying on his close advisors, including his Secretary of State James Monroe, who would later succeed him as president, and his wife, Dolly Madison, played a significant role as well, becoming one of the most beloved first ladies in American history, known for her charm, hospitality, and courage, particularly during the evacuation of Washington, when she famously saved a portrait of George Washington from the burning White House, symbolizing the resilience of the nation. And by the time Madison left office in 1817, the United States had endured a major war, strengthened its national identity, and begun to move toward a more unified and confident future. And although his presidency faced criticism for its early failures, history has come to view Madison as a steady and principled leader who helped guide the country through a critical period, building upon the foundations he had helped create years earlier as a framer of the Constitution. And after retiring to his Virginia estate, Montpelier, Madison continued to be involved in public affairs, offering advice and supporting the preservation of the Union. And he remained a respected figure until his death in 1836, leaving behind a legacy that combined intellectual brilliance with practical leadership. And today, James Madison is remembered not only as a key architect of American government, but also as a president who, despite immense challenges, helped secure the nation's place in the world and strengthen the ideals upon which it was founded.